I'm Corey
Yep.
Jones. I'm here with Dominic Mundy, my friend and neighbor. And today we're going to talk about movies. One of our favorite things to do, one of our favorite pastimes.
Yes,
And
it
today
is.
we got a really good movie starring a really great actor. He's been in a lot of good movies, Gerard Butler. And this one is called Den of Thieves. And later on, when we're talking, I'm going to tell you a really good story about Den of Thieves and how that played a big part in my life in the past couple of months. So first off, I want to get
Okay.
your take on the movie because your command of movies is just so much better. I remember when I posted on Facebook my list of 5 favorite movies. You're like, of all times? Right?
Well, it's one of the. It is a form of art, right? And everything is subjective, and you like what you like, just like music and other things. So, yeah. So I'm fresh, right? I just recently saw this movie, and it is action packed. It has some intrigue. For me, it was 60 to 70% of a really great movie, with about 20 to 30% of me going, no, wait, whoa, stop. What? Like, it's like any movie like this. So, well, for people that haven't seen it, right? Den of Thieves stars Gerard Butler from the Fallen movies and a bunch of other things, and he's the good guy, but not a good guy, if that makes any sense. And then you have the lead bad guy played by Pablo Schreiber, and he's like the bad guy, but maybe a goodish guy. So they got that whole ambiguity thing. You're not quite sure who to root for the whole time, blah, 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 blah. And any movie like this where it's like, it's a heist movie and they're stealing something, and you know there's going to be a, think Oceans, but with a lot of guns and explosions, right? There's going to be a plan, and there's going to be inside information, and be the whole thing. So there's always spots along a movie like that where you go, oh, okay, well, that's probably not how that would have happened, but I get it. That's what's happening here.
Yes.
This movie had a little bit, like maybe 3 too many of those moments where it lost me for a stretch where I went, like, there's no way. But it ended with which we won't really say, but with a great hook twist.
No
that
spoilers
I think
today?
No spoilers today, I don't think,
Okay.
unless we do a separate section. But did kind of redeem the movie for me at the end. So Gerard Butler's great on screen anytime he is. I'm a bit, we've talked about what movie did we talk about? London Is Falling?
Yeah, London Is Fallen. But they got their asses kicked.
Right. Yeah, and that was
an
I love
inside
those
job.
movies. Right. Which I guess this kind of, well, what did you think about this movie? And I have a list of questions for you, being that I'm on the Safetyman podcast with firearms trainer and former SWAT trainer.
Sure.
I have a lot of questions about some things in this movie that I think might make interesting conversation.
I liked it. I mean, it was sad in the fact that he was such he was going through a really rough patch in his life, with the divorce, with his kids, with alcoholism, and all the other things that were going on. But he was still a tenacious detective, and he was chasing the bad guys. You know what I mean? And he did ultimately solve one of the most bank robbery strings in that part of the country. So, I mean, at the end of the day, he did do a good job.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes. He did for the most part. You're right. He did figure it all out at the end, at some cost, right? I liked the he's the rough and tough sheriff guy that kind of runs his own independent squad within the various law enforcement agencies, and then the FBI guy shows up, right? And he's got his hair slicked to the side. He's a vegan. He's I don't approve of the way you're handling this situation, guy, but he got everything wrong at every step of the way.
Exactly. He's eating donuts out of the crime scene.
That was funny.
Like a big no-no.
Right. And he does progress throughout the movie, right? Like in that opening scene, they're joking about how he's on some kind of a bender. Clearly, he's a complete mess. He probably smells. He hasn't shaved. His clothes are all whatever. And they don't really tell you where he was, but it doesn't matter. You just get the point, right?
Yeah.
And then his wife leaves with the kids in a dramatic scene. And then they don't really harp on it, but he definitely, like, he's seen less on camera drinking. He's even seen smoking a little bit less, even though he kind of has a poignant cigarette at the end. There's definitely a subtle redemption line for him throughout the movie. That's not the main theme, but it is consistent, I think. Like, they definitely take him from the gutter, and not that they give him a cliched reward, like, oh, wife's back and everything's happy and kids, whatever, but you see he's a little bit more together at the end, and he's on in the right direction.
Yeah, he wasn't standing in line getting the award for the Medal of Valor for solving that, because he broke a bunch of rules on the way to do it. They're like, good job, fist bump, but that was about it.
Yeah, and one of those rules that he broke, which is the firefight at the end. Now, this had to drive you crazy, right? Like, it had to drive you nuts, and you had to watch it and go, there is no way even those cops pulled those guns on that freeway with those parked cars, and like, that was a little rough.
No. And I'll tell you what, this is a scene that I had wanted to talk to you about. So a couple months ago, I had the opportunity to train with a whole bunch of Navy SEALs. And
cool.
This SEALs training was based on 2 shootouts. That shootout from that movie and the shootout from the movie Heat, which we've all watched, right?
Yes.
Where it's bringing overwhelming firepower to your enemy, and it's non-stop. Where one unit is driving straight ahead while the other unit is flanking. And then when that unit's driving straight ahead's out of bullets, this unit flanking is keeping them pinned down while the main unit's driving straight ahead, and the other unit can flank around. And it just makes those bad guys think that they bit off way more than they can chew, and that there's no way they can win this, and eventually we get flanked because they're worried about the bad guys in front. So that's what we were training for. And these Navy SEALs were really, really good. They're really good instructors. The only unfortunate part, it was kind of like the weather that we see outside. It was a snow and icy day, so we had to do everything a lot slower and a lot more methodical. Yeah. But I did take a lot from that movie. Yeah, unleashing fully automatic gunfire in a traffic jam full of women and children in cars is really hard to do. They got to be well aimed, well timed, pinpoint accuracy shot.
Yeah. I did like the way they articulated how each person clearly was trained. Like, there's a range scene, and there's their background and credentials, this sort of, and they did that thing where, like, they actually reloaded their weapons. They ran out at certain times. They showed reloading. They should, like, and it may sound trite to say it's just a movie, right? But that's the type of stuff that adds a realism, I think, that they should go like, oh, this is a little more intense every time they have to stop, or they're listening. Okay, he's reloading. Let's move. That kind of stuff. As long as it's not too. And again, just like his redemption arc, they didn't harp on it. It wasn't like, shit, I'm out, right? Like, just in the process of them doing what they do, it added that sense that they knew how to handle the weapons, because the bad guys are supposed to be former military, right? And they give you their dossier at one point, and we're supposed to understood that they have training. So it's nice when they actually
they trained well, and they trained well too. Over in country, they had some really good training being in combat, so that is really important. And they have little to no regard for what's happening in their crossfire. We as law enforcement have to pay attention to every round fired, whereas those bad guys, they don't care. And that puts us at an extreme disadvantage when we're up against somebody like that. Sure.
I thought it was interesting in this film how the bad guys did seem to have some regard in that way, and I think it's what helped make them likable enough that there was some of that conflict of, like, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy here, and so it's always better when you kind of like the bad guy a little bit, when they're not just a two-dimensional picture of evil. And in the beginning, in the opening scene, they one of his crew guys kills a cop, or it was an armed security guard, armored car guard, and they made a big deal of, like, we don't do that, like, you just screwed up. Like that's not what like we don't do that. They left somebody alive. All of their plan, they fake killed a hostage. So even when Gerard Butler's team gets out of that vehicle in this firefight we're discussing and starts flying down between the rows of cars, you see the lead bad guy, Merriman is his name in the movie, kind of do a head drop, like, oh, they're out of the car. But once he realized this is what we're doing, he committed all the way.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. You know, another part I liked in the movie is when 50 Cent's daughter's boyfriend shows up to take her to the prom. That was great, wasn't it?
It was really good. Another thing where they endear. So it's a scene you've seen 1,000 times. I mean, think Lethal Weapon when Murtaugh's daughter's going to the prom and Riggs and him try to like intimidate him, right? Like he brings him into the room and there's all these big burly, tattooed badass guys trying to scare him. Played for laughs at the end, and again, good like little scene. They don't come back to it, but it gives you that like, hey, these guys got a family, the bad guys have a family. Like it just adds to that, the fleshing out the characters, which 50 Cent's character may have been one of the better characters in the whole movie. Actually, he was understated, he didn't speak a lot, but he filled that role as kind of the bad guy number 2 really well.
He did. Didn't you want Chinese food really bad after you watched that movie?
I'm gonna get it as soon as we're done. Lo mein, some fresh Chinese food, not some
fresh
stuck in a light fixture Chinese.
Yeah, not that one that's been in the toilet in the light fixture for a couple of days. So you had some questions. I want to hear these questions.
What is a bleach bomb, and does it work?
So bleach bomb can get rid of DNA. It can overpower DNA. And there was another movie Dagmar and I just watched the other night. They bleach bomb something. I think it was The Town. When they were robbing the banks, and then the guy falls in love with the witness from the bank. They bleach bombed a couple of their vehicles in that, and they bleach bombed the bank. So not what Hillary Clinton did, which was bleach pit. Bleach bomb is designed to mess up fingerprints and mess up DNA. So if they have any fibers, if they got cut, if a fingernail falls off or something like that, it just makes it much, much more hard to collect and determine who that may have been from.
Right. Gotcha. I'd never seen one in a movie before. I think they have been around, but so that's basically a DNA / cleanup job.
Yeah. And
got it.
But burning cars, we see a lot. We see that very often. It's burning cars.
Yeah, that's pretty common as well. I think they burn all their clothes at one point in this movie. Breakdown in security protocols. This is one of those things that when I started off saying like there's one too many moments in the final heist. So they're coming in and there's like 4 or 5 steps along the way when they take this armored vehicle into the facility they're trying to rob, where people audibly on camera and to someone else go, "Oh, new guy. Oh, new guy. Oh, don't recognize that guy." And each one is set up as a checkpoint, and each time those people go like, "All right, just come on in," right? Then you've got the guy leaving, Chinese food guy, leaving, and everything is wrong, and the hard-ass armed security guard in the front goes, "All right, just let him go." And I watched this and I went, one of those is excusable, 2 is a movie, 3 or 4 is almost, it undercuts the whole idea of that's the most secure facility anybody could ever break into, right?
Exactly.
So as a security expert, like those breakdowns, right? Unacceptable.
It's beyond unacceptable. I mean, it's like, not to use a very dramatic and scene that happened in our recent past, it's storming the Capitol, but I mean, there's multiple layers of security where that just doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. I've always heard of people jumping the fence, and we had one guy jump the fence of the White House, made it all the way inside, and a female off-duty Secret Service agent tackled him. She had enough wherewithal to say, "I don't think he's supposed to be there." He tackled him. So in that building where they work, complacency. It's never been attempted rob. Never. So they're so complacent. Everything must just be a cascade of mistakes, and they're not expecting this is the real deal. So your level of of how high of alert you are starts to go down. So it's that.
Sure.
Just recently, a male was able to get on Andrews Air Force Base and climb aboard one of the presidential airlift aircraft. Not Air Force One or Air Force Two, but one of the ones that may carry the vice president or the first lady or head of state or visiting dignitary actually on the airplane, which is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Yeah. But it's just a breakdown of complacency.
It's any system that's designed, that is required to function on human discipline, is going to have flaws because of human nature, right?
We're human, yes.
Yes.
We should all have Teslas.
We should all have Teslas. So that was definitely part of the movie where I was like, okay, this is a little. It felt like one too many of those moments. What else did I want to ask you about? A lot of it had to do with, because again, I wasn't just talking about this movie. I was talking about this movie with you. I'm always thinking about like, how does this kind of all relate? Where do you think the dramatic pause? What did you think about that interface between Gerard Butler's character as the head of, I guess, the sheriff's department, right? Mm-hmm. It was interesting to me because they were a highly tactically trained group, right? But they weren't. It didn't seem like they were the group that should be. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like I wonder how he got into that. I always wonder how in these movies we're supposed to believe that the guy who just can't keep his shit together no matter what he does, as life is falling apart, is also the guy, right? That can just tell everybody else to go straight, and he gets all the respect in the world when he does, and no one ever says, you're done. His own men are always like, oh no, he's the guy, right? Like,
well, there's a, like, I don't know if dichotomy is the best word for that, but there are guys and girls who are senior enough and have had enough experience and have enough juice and have enough contacts where they can command, to a certain extent, a response to some sort of dangerous situation. However, in an agency the size that he had, with the types of crimes that were taking place, with fully automatic weapons, SWAT would have been first on scene in any of those hits that they were taking down. He would have been playing a backup role, sitting in a command bus, feeding them dynamic, actionable intelligence all the way. He's not going to be first or second in the door of that bank. That's going to be SWAT that's going to do that. Those men and women are trained to handle that, point blank. So that's the one thing that Hollywood always goes wrong. You always see two SWAT guys and then the detective with their little vest on with the pistol running around behind them. It doesn't happen. I've been SWAT for almost 20 years. That never happened. Detectives never came in. If anything, they would come up and they would touch the door and say, that's the door, and they would peace out, so we knew that's the door that the bad stuff was going in, and then we would go in and take it. But again, if we got our cues from Hollywood, we would die.
Because if you're going in full tactical, right, you're fully armored, you're fully ready to go. You're obviously you're prepared to do what it needs to do to control whatever situation you're walking into.
Yeah.
You can't also worry about the guy behind you wearing the windbreaker and the sunglasses, who's just got his issued 9mm drawn, going like, oh well, I'm just gonna walk with you guys, right? Because now you got a weakness on your flank as well as whatever you're trying to deal with up front, right? Like it doesn't work that way.
People don't understand is the tactical commander and the incident commander work hand in hand. So until we clear the scene, until SWAT clears the scene and says it's all safe, we are in charge of that scene. Nobody comes in, nobody leaves, nobody does anything in that scene until the tactical commander, which oftentimes was me, said it was okay. Then we would have the incident commander come in. We would brief the incident commander, and he or she could have come in, the detectives, the processing unit, and whatever else they needed to do.
So that's interesting. I love hearing about, like, understanding kind of how systems work and how that all kind of interrelates. Here's something interesting. This whole movie really turns on the fact that people talk too much at bars. Right?
But,
the whole movie's only a movie because, as the line in the movie goes, everybody's heard loose lips sink ships, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's a fun almost lesson for everybody. It's amazing. Imagine what you've ever said to a person you're sitting next to in confidence while you're sitting at a bar. Now imagine the guy in the center of that bar hears 100 people a day have those types of conversations. What type of information and knowledge they could, if they wanted to, as happened here, put something together.
Oh my God. How many people could he blackmail if he wanted to? This guy's there with his girlfriend. This guy's there with his mistress. This guy's there, with the company funds. This guy's there with the cop. This guy's got insider trading information. This guy's doing a deal with some foreign country. He's got all the information in the world. But if he wants to keep his job and stay alive, he's got to learn to shut up too. It can't be both.
Right. But it's a lesson in false sense of security, right? In certain situations, if you're sitting in the chair in your barbershop and you're talking to the barber, well, you're at least then consciously you're telling somebody something, right? Yeah. And you're sitting at a bar, whether you're talking to the person next to you or talking to the person behind the bar, you're just having a conversation. You're downloading from the day, you're blowing off steam, and most people don't realize that how much of what you say could turn over into a potential problem, I guess is the right.
Exactly. But that shows you how much weight these actions that these protagonists, antagonists are doing in these movies, how much it weighs on them, that they have to get it off their chest. That would be something you want to keep as close to the vest as possible, yet they feel that it is so important, so weighty, they have to get off their chest to somebody. And for them, the bar is the most comfortable place that they go to because they've known this person. Like I used to go to Jay's all the time. I knew the bartenders at Jay's for over 10 years. So it was so good to be able to get certain things off of your chest.
Yeah.
Not that I was robbing banks, but
so that we know of. I'm gonna say here spoilers for a minute because this movie came out in 2018. Okay. It's on Netflix. It's been on Netflix since 2018. So if you want to watch it, go watch it. If you haven't watched it, it's probably because maybe didn't know about it or just haven't. But that's because. So spoilers. I want to talk about the Donnie character, right? So Donnie is the bartender. So it's So the whole movie, he's set up as he's what you would call the audience point of view in a movie like this. He's the guy who you can most relate to and feel like you're seeing the movie through. He's a lo-fi criminal who gets in with a high crime syndicate. He's overwhelmed there, and then he gets put in this position where he's got to snitch for the cops and all of that, and they kind of rough him up a little bit, and he's presented as like he's got some skills, but he's not as strong, he's not as ripped as everybody else, and all of that. So you can relate to him in a lot of ways, right? And through him, the cop's the bad guy because they're really taking advantage of him, and they're physical with him, and we kind of see how rough. And then the bad guys are the bad guys because we see how they almost kill him and how they're using him and all of this stuff. And you pretty much think like it's set up where he's going to be the fall guy, one side or the other the whole time.
Right.
And then the twist, right, is he was actually playing them. And what's so interesting about that is how you realize along the way, it wasn't two separate things. He didn't keep them separate and play both sides. He knew he had two former jocks with big egos.
Yeah.
And he put them right next to each other.
Yeah.
Right. So they could not see anything but each other through their egos and their anger and their rage and their competitiveness. Right. And then he had a clear runway.
That's a fair point. That's a great point. Yeah. That's fantastic insight.
It was an interesting way of setting up and then revealing the con. if you will,
Yeah.
of the whole thing. And even halfway through, there were times where I was like, "There's got to be another informant." You knew there was going to be a twist or a hook or a reveal. I thought maybe it was going to, Donnie was playing both sides, but not the way he was, or 50 Cent was going to turn out to actually be an FBI agent at the end and flip something. There was all these things in my head, and I didn't quite see it playing the way it did. And that's a good misdirection by the main character, but also good misdirection by the writer.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I watched that movie twice now, and the more I think about it, the more I really, really like that movie. Especially I watched it once, and I did that training with the Navy SEALs, so I watched it again, and I was like, wow, yeah, this is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say if I'm doing an out of 10, I'd probably give it a 6.5, only because there was about 20 minutes at the end where it completely lost me, and if it didn't have a hook at the end, I probably would have been lower. But otherwise, the action was good, the gunfights were great. Gerard Depardieu. That's a totally different guy. Not in this movie. Is great on camera, great action star, funny. The humor was actually really good. The donut scene, like you described, the prom scene. There was a few other verbal interactions between him and the FBI guy. The acting was good for an action movie. I'm glad I watched it.
Well, what I want to say is, in my 27-year career, I've run into a lot of FBI agents. We had a lot of bank robberies. We had human trafficking. We had major drug deals. At no point was there ever any animosity like that between interagency, whose scene is this? Whether it be state police, FBI, Secret Service, DEA, we always got along together because they had assets that we needed. And you got to remember, DEA guy coming from a North Philly office doesn't know anything about this part of Mount Laurel that I'm in. You know what I mean? So he's coming to my station. He goes, yeah, I need to go do surveillance on this. Where do you think I set up? He's looking at me. So he's not going to be an a-hole to me. We're fist bump, good to go. We got this. Let's go do this together. I don't care whose bust it is. It could be his bust, whatever. That's not the problem. Your ego's got to be in check. But every federal agent, every state agent, even the military, sometimes we'd have to go for absconders. They were always good to go because they knew they needed us more than we needed them. They wanted that bad guy way more than we wanted that bad guy because we didn't even know what he did. Maybe he wasn't even in our town. He just happened to be in our town.
Right. That's a movie trope that probably goes back before this, but where I first remember seeing this thing set up was in Die Hard, right? Yeah. Where it's the one cop, and then it's the whole LAPD, and then Agent Johnson and Agent Johnson show up, and they're like, "We're in control now. You guys gotta leave," And it's a whole
that's
thing.
Never happened.
That's obviously
never seen.
And that's just, I guess they need to create that tension somehow for the main character. The other thing that always happens in these movies is the bust, right? The collar, whatever the language they're using, is always talked about as if everyone in law enforcement is on a baseball team, and if you don't hit enough home runs, you're going to get traded to the Padres, right? Like, how real is the whole my collar, your collar? Like, if I don't get credit for this, I'm going to be in trouble, or I need, you know what I mean, type thing.
No, it doesn't matter. Most of it's already dictated by what the crime is. So if it's a federal crime, I can't take. Like, if a guy robs a bank, that's a federal crime. I can't arrest him. I can physically arrest him, but I have to immediately turn him over to the FBI. Like, if he runs in my sector, I could tackle him, arrest him, and do all that stuff. But he's the FBI's problem. And same thing, if the FBI's on a surveillance for us, and something happens and some other crime happens and they get him, they're turning him over to us. So there's none of that in contest over whose jurisdiction it is. Never.
Right.
And again, in 27 years, that's never happened. Everybody knows going in what the crime is, who's the ultimate authority in charge, and who's taking. We don't want the bad guy, quite honestly, because that's a lot of paperwork. So if this guy robbed 6 banks in 4 states, I don't want to have to write that down. You go handle that. That's your job. And then they'll give them
Right.
to the U.S. Marshals, and then they'll work with all the extradition and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I got another Gerard Butler movie for you if you didn't see it, called Hunter Killer.
I didn't see it. I saw it on his IMDb, and I remember the movie, but I did not see it. How was it?
Very good. Dagmar and I watched that together. So we watched in this order: Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, Hunter Killer, and then we watched Den of Thieves. And
wow,
she
you
said
were doing a little.
Hunter Killer was her favorite one. There's actually
really?
a little part where you get misty in Hunter Killer.
Uh-oh.
At least I will. I don't know who you are, but I did.
I've been known to shed a tear at a movie or two. He was at one point, if I remember correctly, wasn't he like he wasn't always an action movie guy, right? I think he was almost like a heartthrob type. I'm trying to remember what else he's been in, but oh no, must be mixing up something. He's 300 guy.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Did you see 300?
Yeah, I only saw that when it first came out. I don't remember all the people in there.
Yeah, me neither. But he's been in a bunch of
another movie he's in too, though. He's also in Angel Has Fallen, when Morgan Freeman is the president in the helicopter. Something happens to the presidential Marine One. So that's a pretty good movie too.
It is. Is that the one that opens with the insane drone strike?
Yes.
All these micro mini drones that are.
Yep.
Yeah. That was intense.
Yes.
That was intense. London Has Fallen is my favorite of the three.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I can't tell you. You ever watch a movie and it just hits you in the right spots, and you're like, I can't tell you why it's good. I couldn't write an essay on it, but God, I'll watch that movie anytime it's on.
My favorite line is, "I was wondering when you were going to come out of the closet."
Right.
It's a great movie.
I love it.
It's a great line.
It's a great movie. Well, Den of Thieves 2 apparently comes out next year, or yet to be determined, but 2022 or 2023 according to Den of Thieves 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now I hope we don't have to wait till 2022 to do another Safetyman movie review. But
no. We can definitely do some more. Yeah, I'll let you pick the movie this time.
Well, I'll make a recommendation for you and everybody watching this, and maybe it's our next movie or maybe it's not, but it's brand new on Netflix. And again, whenever I watch a movie and it has sort of these like, wow, there's some lessons in there we could pull out of this. It's like the show You, right? Did you watch You?
Loved
Did we talk about this?
Yes.
I only watched the first season, but man, that movie, like, I have a hard time even recommending it to people.
How did you not watch the second season?
I do that. This is a whole separate conversation. I do it all the time. I watched the first season of Ozark and didn't watch the second season for like 2 years after it came out. And everybody said, how? Check out I Care a Lot on Netflix.
Okay.
Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage.
Okay.
And it's a movie, one of these movies that starts one way and then turns in a totally different way. And who you think is the good guy, the bad. It's kind of like this: who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. There's a lot of sort of mixed morals in the protagonist. It doesn't. It ends a little more straightforward with a little more comeuppance, but it was good. It was good. It was well acted. It was interesting. It's one of those movies there's a lot to talk about because it wasn't a movie that's just like, oh my god, that's amazing, there's nothing else to say. Like, there's a lot of little pieces in it and whatnot, and identity theft is a big part of it. Kind of sort of made me think of You and things like that. So that's one you guys might want to watch.
I Care a Lot.
I Care a Lot.
All right. On that note, Bundy, I care a lot about these movie reviews. Hopefully we'll get this one done, and maybe we can do maybe one a month or so. Build up that YouTube channel and that following. And who knows? Maybe we'll be the new Siskel and Ebert.
I like it. I'm in.
All right, brother.
Yeah. All right, man. Always good to talk to you.
All right, man. Be safe, brother.